Last episode, we spoke with Coach Dave Walker, Concord head football coach. Now, let's bump up another level. Let's go from D2 to D1, where we are pleased to be joined by Coach Shawn Clark, a Charleston native, 20-7 in his first few seasons as the Mountaineers head coach. No, not WVU, Appalachian State, 20-7 in 3 seasons so far. He's a Charleston native, went to GW High School, played football and basketball, which we'll get into. And then just listening to where he's been so far, he was a Louisville graduate assistant from 01 to 02, Eastern Kentucky following that as an offensive line coach, Purdue as an O-line coach, Kent State as an O-line coach, and then now he has spent the last few seasons with the Mountaineers down in Boone, North Carolina. And man, oh man, I am excited for this as well. And also just a side note, not really a side note, this is something pretty significant as well. He was a 2-time All-American at Appalachian State in 96 and 98 all-conference, 95, 96, and 98 as well. So without further ado, let's please introduce, however you want to introduce them, little jazz snaps, miniature golf clap, or you just go full hand with the claps. Please welcome Coach Shawn Clark, Appalachian State head football coach. Coach, welcome to the program.
No, Taylor, I appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to talking to you today. And it's always I always enjoy talking to people from the great state of West Virginia. So we're out here in Arizona right now at the Fiesta Bowl Summit with all the head coaches in college football. And but spring recruiting is going very well right now. We're on the road recruiting, our coaches are, and this is my downtime. I say downtime. I am on Zoom calls every single day with recruiting and then trying to raise money for our university. So again, appreciate having me on. I look forward to this.
So talk about this conference that you're at out in Arizona. When you go to something like this, what do you try and take away whenever you get to interact with different head coaches across the country?
Well, it's good to go out and meet people, and it's about networking. Right now, we're trying to navigate through the NIL deal and where it's taking college football. So we had meetings this morning. We have a little break this afternoon, and we'll have a dinner tonight and back in the meetings tomorrow morning, and just try to get a handle on it because this has really changed the game as far as recruiting and the pay for play, and we have to get a better grasp on this. So. But it's good to network. The weather's nice out here. I'm looking out at the Gainey Ranch, the mountains, and about to jump in that pool here in about an hour, I believe.
That's awesome. So let's sort of talk about transfer portal, NIL. Well, let's start with NIL. Just walk us through what you think about it and just sort of what you're hearing from other coaches as well. You don't have to provide a whole, assessment of what you've heard so far, but just give us a general assumption or even just a general theme of what you're hearing from different coaches across the country.
Well, the name, image, and likeness is a way to put money into your player's pocket. Again, that's when you're selling jerseys and doing TV and radio. I do believe you should get some money for your name, image, and likeness, but they've taken this to extremes now. It's more of a recruiting battle, and who can get the most money up front. What's your worth? I know some Power 5 programs, the first thing they do when they come on campus is meet with their NIL department. There's going to be, if this continues to go, there's going to be a major separation between the haves and have-nots. And I don't think that's good for college football. So I think when the NIL was done for the right reasons, but they didn't take the big picture of what could happen. And it's the wild, wild west right now, as you can see on social media and about the news that, some of these players are 6-7 figure deals. And it's taken away, in my opinion, taken away the college feel for college sports is pay for play right now.
How do you think collegiate athletics, especially the NCAA, can tame what's been going on with NIL?
I think that it's too far out of control right now. And I'm not sure what's going to happen, but we as an organization with the NCAA and our coaches association, we have to get a plan for this because it really has opened up Pandora's box, and it's the haves and have-nots right now. And there's a major separation. There's probably 15 to 20 Power 5 programs that separated themselves from everyone that really has a really legit chance of getting any recruit in the country and playing for a national championship. And but that's where we are right now. But we as coaches, we have to get with our athletic directors and the powers to be to really get a better handle on this NIL deal because it is out of control.
How do you think NIL has either benefited or hurt Appalachian State? I know that's a weird way to say that, but how do you see it impacting your program so far?
I wasn't sure how it happened. We do have roughly 15 to 20 guys who have some form of an NIL deal, whether it be a free meal here or selling products online. I wasn't sure how it would do in the locker room, and to our kids' credit, they went on their own. We can't get involved in making those deals for our players. They went on their own and marketed themselves, and it's been good. But again, we're in the mountains of Northwest North Carolina, and we're 10 minutes from the mountains of Virginia and 10 minutes from the mountains of Tennessee, and we haven't had that many issues. Again, we have 15 to 20 guys with deals, but it's nothing that's going to go out and change their life right now.
Do you see NIL sort of breaking apart the locker room? Because people are generalizing and they're assuming that whenever a guy goes out and they get an NIL deal, that may hurt the locker room. Are you seeing that at all?
We have it in our program. And I do have an issue with that in the recruiting process, because what if you go out and just say you give a player $100,000 deal to come to your university, and he comes into the locker room and hasn't played a down in college football and doesn't play and becomes a bad apple in your locker room. So I would rather go take that money and give it to the players who make good grades, who go to class, who's a good role model, does great things in the community, and give them money that way. So we have a plan in place, and like everyone has collectives and this and that, but that's where I like to see it go. If you make good grades, if you're a great football player, you're a great teammate, then you can get rewarded for it.
I agree. I do agree. So let's look on the transfer portal side, because that's another hot topic in collegiate athletics. What do you think of that? Let's just start there. Are you for it? Are you against it? Are you still trying to figure out the whole complexity of it? What are your thoughts on the transfer portal?
I do believe that the players should have the right to go where they want to go. I know it is a coach's nightmare trying to have roster management right now, and we're giving our players an out to if it's not easy right now. If you're not a star player, you can leave and transfer. I'm not a big fan for it. I think we have to do a better job of regulating the time periods, whether it's the first signing period or 1 month in the end of May to do this. But we've been very fortunate at App State right now. We've only lost one person that we wanted to stay, one player, and he went to University of Oklahoma. His dad's a defensive coordinator out there, and I understood that. But we've done a really good job. What we do, we try to invest back in our players, and anything we can do to help our players give them a world-class experience, we're going to do that. So when you come to App, if you get a world-class experience and the chance to play for championships, that's all we can do, and to get your degree. And we set a single season record this year in attendance. At our university, we average over 30,000 per game. Set a single record attendance also in the Sun Belt. They come there, they get treated right. We have a very passionate fan base, and our players enjoy playing there. So, knock on wood, we haven't lost anyone to the portal that we don't want to go.
When you look at this down the road, and you just mentioned how you guys haven't lost a whole lot of people quite yet, but if that day were to come, and then obviously you're having to evaluate different things relationship-wise, how do you go about managing those kind of relationships and trying to balance that with new guys as well and trying to develop that? And then, you don't know whether or not they're going to stay that next year or not. So how do you go about establishing a firm relationship with a newcomer?
Well, first off, what we're going to do is we're going to recruit high school athletes. We did save 5 scholarships back for the portal this season. Not sure what was going to happen, but we're a developmental program. We're going to recruit high school athletes to come in, and I think when you come back and you look at our program, it's a player-led program, and it's a lot of tradition there. So I don't think you can sustain a great program if you keep going out and getting transfers every single year. And that's what I worry about most in our program at App State is, with that locker room as close as it is, the tradition we have, if we get transfers in year in, year out, we're going to lose that. And we can't do that to be successful at App State.
Going back to this conference that you're at in Arizona, whenever you're hearing conversations about the transfer portal, are you hearing anything about how this could or could not hurt high school recruiting? Because obviously, like you just said, you guys go after high school recruits a lot more often, but do you see the transfer portal hurting high school recruiting at all?
No, without question, it's hurting high school football all across the country. And again, we're not doing this at App, but if you go out and you can get a proven player that's played at the highest level of college football, and he transfers to your university, he's really locked in. He can't transfer again without setting the season. So it's almost like it's a win-win situation for that university. But but I really do believe it's hurting high school football, unfortunately, and we have to do a good job as coaches to make sure we're continuing that pipeline from the high school to the universities, because I do believe that that's what you have to have great programs, and we'll continue to do it that way.
Along those lines as well, sort of tying in the last two questions I've asked you about relationships and with high school athletes as well. When you look at the two of those combined, what kind of goes into that sales pitch that you're going to these different student athletes and you're saying, we want to develop you, we want to work with you as well, while also letting the parents hear what you have to say as well when you go on these recruiting trips?
And I keep it very simple when I'm in the recruiting homes, and I don't promise playing time. I promise the parents they'll get a world-class degree from App State and have a chance to play for championships. And if that's not good enough, they're not our kind of player. And as you're recruiting, and again, it's still about people. I think as coaches, we can lose that sometime. It's about people, and we get our kind of guys and develop those players to go out into society and have a meaningful degree and have a positive impact on society.
So would you assume that what they do outside of football is what that would be the first thing that you look at whenever you're looking at a player that's brand new, that's literally just put on your plate?
Yeah, in the recruiting process, we're a lot slower. If you look at our recruiting boards through the last, I would say 5 to 10 years, we don't throw a lot of offers out in recruiting. We try to get to know the player, and we recruit the parents harder than we do the player, and we want to make sure we get the right people in the building. And if we get the right people in the building, we can be successful. But we want to make sure we talk to the principals, we'll talk to the custodians, we talk to people inside the building to what kind of kid is he when no one's looking. And I do believe if you can get that kind of kid, a tough, hard-nosed player to come into your program and not looking for all the glory, they have a chance to have a really good player and have a chance to win.
Go back to what you said at the beginning of that statement. You guys recruit more of the parents than you feel like at certain points the student athletes. What do you mean by that?
Well, as the recruiting process goes on, if you're just talking, and this is our program, if you're just talking to the high school, the student athlete, then you're really not recruiting the student athlete. You have to find out who's going to be the decision maker in the home, and then you have to be able to explain to the parent, the grandparent, the guardian, how are you going to take care of their son or their grandson and have a chance to be successful. And also it's not a 4-year or 5-year decision, it's a 40-year decision. And you want to come in and as I tell you, I will coach your son just like I coach my son. And when he does really good, I'm going to hug him. When he does really bad, I'm going to put a size 14 in his tail. And we're going to give him that father figure away from home. We're going to be tough. We don't cut edges. We keep it. We're pretty straightforward in our program. That's really had a chance why we've been so successful for. If you look at our roster and our heights, we're not very big getting off the bus. We have great people and great players. And I do believe if you go back and look at our recruiting boards, it's because we know what that kid, what turns his button, what makes him go, what hurts him, but by talking to the parents. So, I'm out in Arizona last night. I did 3 Zoom calls with parents for the 24 class. Or 23 class, I apologize. But man, I think that's big in the recruiting process. So some coaches will never talk to a parent. And when you talk to the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the position coach, the nutritionist, the strength coach, we're all in the Zoom meetings answering any question they might have about our program.
Let's go back to your roots of West Virginia. I mentioned in the opening that you graduated from George Washington High School in 1993. You played football and basketball as well. But let's start here. Looking back at your time in West Virginia, being able to grow up in the Charleston community, what was that like for you in the 90s, in the late 80s as well?
Right, agree. I'm a very proud West Virginian, and I wear that. I tell people where I'm from all the time because there are great people in that state, and sometimes we get a bad name for ourselves. But I'm very proud to be from West Virginia. It raised me to be the man I am today. My mom and dad still live there outside of Charleston, and as this thing goes on, and on Saturdays, the first score I look for is make sure we win. And then I look at West Virginia and Marshall because I want those programs to be successful also. And I think it's great for our state. And we are a very proud state, and I have a lot of pride in there also.
What about West Virginia do you think just continues to make you proud to be a West Virginia? Obviously, you're not here every day, but you play for you coach and you played for a school that's labeled the Mountaineers as well. So
Right.
you kind of tie in the whole West Virginia persona, sort of say.
Yeah, I wasn't good enough to go to West Virginia back in the day, so I had to go to the other Mountaineers. So, but I just think the people in the state. I think they're genuine people. They're hardworking people. They don't ask for handouts. They grab their lunch bucket and their hard hat and go to work. And that's what I do also as the head football coach. I'm not sitting on social media trying to toot my horn and hey, this is me. I just go to work every single day and do the best of my ability. And that's why I've been successful for in coaching. Is because I'm there early, I stay late, and I've had a lot of good players throughout my tenure.
When you look at the people that you were surrounded with whenever you were in Charleston and growing up in Charleston as well, do you sort of take bits and pieces of the people that you interact with at a young age? And now that you're starting to embody that a lot more, and even that may even show out the West Virginia side of you may show out whenever you're coaching your players. Do you ever catch yourself doing that?
Sometimes, I was raised by two great parents. My dad, Roy, my mom, Joyce, and my dad was a Vietnam vet, and he wasn't afraid to bring the belt out or a switch or whatever he could find. And that's back when you could really discipline your children, and you wouldn't be in jail for it. But he just gave me that work ethic and the blue collar mentality, and I've taken that with me everywhere I've been. I had some great coaches throughout the way. I look back at my junior high school coaches and my high school football coaches, my high school basketball coach, Gary Green. That was a big influence on me, and people I still stay in touch to this day.
Looking at your prep career, obviously, again, you played football and basketball as well. What was your go-to sport growing up? Obviously, you would go on to play collegiate football, but between the two sports, which one did you like more growing up?
Well, probably my best sport was baseball. I didn't mention that earlier, but I was a very good baseball player. I was a left-handed pitcher, 6'3", 235 pounds in high school, wherever it was, and that was probably my best sport. But I played that sport so long, and just the time I was ready for something new, and I was getting bigger at the time, and I knew that baseball probably wasn't going to be my sport for college, and I knew that I wanted to get a scholarship. I didn't want my parents to pay for my education and put them in debt for 10 to 15 years. And football was my avenue to be successful. And I had a knee injury my senior year of high school and ended up going to Fort Union Military Academy and right outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. And I had a great year there and was able to showcase my skills in front of Coach Moore, the legendary Coach Jerry Moore, and was offered a scholarship. And I went on 3 or 4 trips, and Boone, North Carolina reminded me of West Virginia, and it was the best fit for me. And now the rest is history.
Okay, so talk about that knee injury that you sustained your senior year. From the mental side of things, how did that impact you? Because you knew that you wanted to stick with football and ultimately try and get to that next level. But from the mental standpoint, how did that affect you as a senior in high school?
It was tough. I think it was the 4th or 5th game of the season. We were playing Herbert Hoover, and I was playing linebacker on defense, and my knee popped, and I knew something was going on. But and that's when you're getting recruited. You're talking to Virginia Tech, West, Rutgers on a weekly basis. Once a week, you're talking to them, and you think you have that you made it, and through a knee injury, it all stopped. And it's tough, but I remember my dad telling me, "Hey, it's going to be a great comeback." And so after my surgery there in Charleston, I just went back to work, and they told me I was going to be out a year, and within 3 months, I'm back on the basketball court playing for my teammates, and it was tough. But again, you just have to put your head down and go to work and know that if you do all the right things, that you have a chance to be successful.
Before we talk about basketball, I have one last question in regards to your prep football career. When you look at the competition level around the Kanawha Valley whenever you played, what was so special about football during the 90s in the Kanawha Valley?
It was great football. I mean, it was just some good rivalries. The George Washington and South Charleston rivalry, then Capital just consolidated from Stonewall Jackson, Charleston High, and that's back when East Bank had a program, and there were some really good players in that conference, in the Kanawha Valley there. I mean, you look at Nitro and all throughout the valley, but just some great relationships we've had, and when I was playing down there. You fast forward, almost 30 years now, and there are some very talented players in the Kanawha Valley in the state of West Virginia right now, and we're recruiting some ourselves from the Kanawha Valley. But the coaching's gotten better, the players have gotten better, and those guys can play at the Power 5 level.
One team in particular that you all played with or played against every year that you were in high school was DuPont, and I think the one thing that immediately comes to mind for everybody is Randy Moss. Now, did you ever get to play against Randy?
I did. He was a sophomore, and I was a senior, and if I'm not mistaken, Jason Williams played also, and I played against his brother Eric. Eric was a large human being. He was about 6'5", 6'6", 300 pounds, and ran the high hurdles in high school. But there was some really, you could tell from an early age that Randy Moss was going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and you fast forward a few years and he's there. But he was special as a sixth grader, seventh grader.
That's funny you mentioned that, because you mentioned Randy, but also Jason, but Bobby Howard as well. Part of that duo, you also had Bobby Howard, who went on to play at Notre Dame and the Chicago Bears in the NFL. I mean, that alone just probably made for some really good football. Regardless if you played on Friday night or not, you probably saw the highlights and you're like, okay, those cats can go.
Yeah, they can go. And don't forget, I believe it was Sam Singleton that was a Major League Baseball draft. And but Bobby Howard, he was a hell of a football player, play at Notre Dame and for the Bears. So they had Fouts had some good players on this team at the time.
Okay, so let's put a pause in your playing career very, very briefly. And I want to ask this question: when you look at recruiting, I want you to step aside from the recruiting standpoint of what you do now, but when you look at the state of West Virginia, what do you think about West Virginia players on the recruiting level, whether any sport for that matter? Because some people think that they're getting overlooked a lot more often now. And obviously, whenever you played, we just mentioned a handful of guys that went on to play at the highest level. I mean, talk about West Virginia athletes being recruited. There's a large following with this podcast that are, high school athletes, and sometimes they may feel discouraged. Just if you could just provide a little bit of light with that.
Yeah, I think that the high school players in West Virginia has gotten a bad name for themselves. It's kind of the stereotype. There's not many players in the state, and I don't believe that. And I've had a chance to bring some of the kids from the state to camp in Boone. I've watched those guys camp at Virginia Tech and North Carolina, and they can compete with anybody. And there may be smaller numbers compared to other states, but there's some damn good football players in that state. I do think one thing that could help the state of West Virginia is to have a spring practice where you literally have a month of practice, a spring game. And best thing is for us, we got recruiting. We can go to the high school, and you go to high school twice, one for an academic and one for an athletic evaluation. But also they have spring practice. You can watch them. And they have a spring game, so you can really watch how they interact with their players. Are they a good teammate? And you can see what you need to see at practice compared to having them come to camp.
I like it. I think that can definitely be applied. So if somebody's listening, hey, take Coach Clark's opinion, use it, run with it. Just saying. He'll probably want some compensation with that. Maybe not. Who knows? But anyway, so going back to basketball, you had told me before we went on the air that you guys played Woodrow Wilson in '93 for the state title. You guys were 22-4 going into that game. You guys lose that game, but again, the competition level whenever you were in high school was booming. We talked about football, basketball was dominant. You had Woodrow Wilson, you all as well. look at that game and just look at the people that played for that Woodrow Wilson team. What just made basketball during that time period when you were in high school so unique and so fun to be around?
It was fun, and our students, the fan base was very involved in it. I know we played with DuPont when Randy was a sophomore, and I think Jason was a junior. We played with Eddie King Gym there at the UC, and it's standing room only. You can't get a seat anywhere in there. And then we made a run, beat Logan, I believe, so beat Logan, made a run through it, and played Woodrow Wilson. And that's the Ryan Calacerto that played for Woodrow Wilson. He was a hell of a basketball player, and it was fun. And I know we mentioned earlier before the show that the Hoppy Kercheval and Tony Caridi was playing during the games, and they came to my house. There's a YouTube video of them in my house, and that was a big deal for a 17-year-old kid back in the day. And now you fast forward ever how many years it's been now on their show, and this kind of came full circle in some ways.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk coaching then. We've talked about transfer portal and NIL, but I want to go macro before we go micro. Looking at where this love for coaching first began, what can you attribute to where this love for coaching began?
My dad was always my coach coming up through the Pee Wee League, and coming home every day and practicing. That was I fell in love with that. And I had some really good coaches. I look at Mike Howard at John Adams Junior High School. He's passed away now, and Gary Green, the basketball coach. C.J. Westerman was a guy as my junior high basketball coach, had a big influence on me. And John Shibman at Fort Union Military Academy. But probably the biggest influence was Jerry Moore. And I'll never forget we played Boise State in 1994 in the playoffs and got beat on a last-second field goal. And just the way he addressed the team, and you really knew he cared about you. And he made a difference in some people's lives that didn't have parents at home or were raised by guardians or an aunt or an uncle, and he was a major impact. And I knew from that day forward I wanted to be in college coaching. So I was going to be a college football coach or a state trooper in West Virginia. There was no in between. And so after I got finished playing ball, I went to work, and there was no coaching jobs at the time. So I went to work for a place called Ted Lansing, and it's in Roanoke, Virginia, and did that for about 6 months. Made a lot of money, was completely miserable. And I'll never forget when I told my dad I was quitting my job to be a graduate assistant. He didn't know what to think, because I was making a lot of good money at the time. But I quit that job to go make 8 years at the University of Louisville as a graduate assistant. And that's what I don't think people realize now is you can't get into coaching for money, and you have to get it because you love the game, you love the players. I still have. I was the offensive line coach, I was the equipment manager, and I was the director of football operations. And I was $17,000 a year, and I thought I was the richest man on earth. And so you do a good job, you make more money. And I'm fortunate now to be the head coach. I've been a coordinator before, I've been an assistant head coach, and it's prepared me to take over my alma mater at Appalachian State University.
We'll get to the part of coaching for your alma mater here briefly, but when you look at what you've learned throughout your coaching career, you've been at a plethora of different places. Well, I mentioned them in the beginning. You mentioned how you were a graduate assistant at Louisville, but from the time that you first got into coaching to this point today, what's been the biggest piece of advice that's been given to you that's really stuck with you and you've embodied throughout your whole entire coaching career?
I mean, the biggest piece of advice I got was from our strength coach at App, and I worked for at Louisville. He always used to say, "Don't give anyone a reason to doubt you." And I've taken that and I've ran with it. And throughout my coaching, I've never given a coach I worked for, a player, a parent, any reason to doubt my self-worth of what I put into this, all the programs I've been involved in, all the time I put into a player's life. Because when you're a coach, you're more than just a football coach. Sometimes you're a psychologist, sometimes you're a dad, sometimes you're a teacher. There are a lot of things that go into it, and it's not a 9-to-5 job. It starts at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and it can go till midnight some nights. But you have a job to do. You do the best of your ability, and you hope and pray to do the right things along the way.
Okay, so I want to ask this question then. So you played for App State. You were a 2-time All-American, 3-time All-Conference for the Mountaineers. Now you are the head coach for your alma mater. What does that mean for you to be the head coach for your alma mater?
It's a dream come true. And, in 2012, I almost came back from Purdue to Appalachian, but financially, it wasn't the right move at the time. And I had a chance. I'm very thankful for Scott Satterfield, who brought me back in 2016. And then Eli Drinkwitz kept me when Satterfield went to Louisville. And, every year I was there at App State, we had some really good football teams. And I had a chance to leave. I had job offers at NC State, I had job offer at University of Florida, I had job offers at Pitt, and the timing never was right. And I do believe it was a good Lord telling me to be patient. And if you're patient and you keep working hard, good things will happen to you. And then when Eli Drinkwitz went to Missouri in 2019, I was going with him as the offensive line coach. And Doug Giller, athletic director, he wanted me to be the interim head coach. Um, and that lasted about 3 or 4 days. We interviewed for the job and got it. But it means a lot to me because it's a place I have a lot of pride in. I want to see you do well. You don't mind working the long hours because, I have 3 times more invested than anybody. Really, I played there, I coached there, I went to school there. So I want this place to be very successful. And everything I do is for the program. It's not about Shawn Clark. It's not about anything. It's for our players and for that program.
You were hired as the 22nd head football coach for Appalachian State in 2019. And in your first season, you became the only first year FBS head coach to win at least 9 games. That was eventually won by winning the 2021 Sun Belt East Division title. You guys went 10-4 that season. But in general, since you've been there, you guys have gone 20-7 since you've become the head coach at Appalachian State. But in your eyes, what do you think has made Appalachian State so successful year in and year out?
I think you did that back to 1988 when Jerry Moore came to Appalachian State. And from 88 till 2022, all but 1 year has been led by an Appalachian man, either Coach Moore or Scott Satterfield or myself. Eli Drinkwitz came in for 1 year. And the pieces are in place to be successful. I know Coach brought that, that always do more than expected attitude. And myself and Scott have carried that tradition on. And we've carried it. It's a player-led program. And we talk about it all the time in recruiting, and it's a true statement. I come to the office early on Saturday mornings in the off season, and there's other receivers and quarterbacks out having 7-on-7. There's offensive linemen down there doing drills, and we don't have to make them do that, and they do it on their own. And all those players are 3.0 students, are good kids, and they want to get that degree, and they want to be champions. And if you look since 2016. We're tied for 4th in all-time wins since 2016. We're averaging double-digit wins every single season, and we recruit the right players.
Yeah, I mean, along with that as well, you have the 8th best winning percentage among active FBS head coaches as well. So that's a testament to what you just said as well. So when you look at the Sun Belt Conference, there's been a lot of news this past season about these different teams being added into it. West Virginia connection as well. Marshall will be joining the Sun Belt this upcoming fall. So when you look at the Sun Belt each and every year, what makes that league so fun to coach in, but at the same time so difficult to win in as well?
Yeah, it's a very tough conference, and I give a lot of credit to Keith Gill, our commissioner, to have the wherewithal to see where we want to go with this. And a lot of conferences have tried to get the TV money and try to get the TV markets, and we're going after for football and basketball programs. We're trying to get great programs, and I do believe the Sun Belt will be the premier Group of 5 conference in the country, especially the East. The Eastern Division is going to be tough with Marshall coming into the equation. They have an outstanding program. James Madison will probably be the biggest surprise in our conference. I think they're ready to play right now. Old Dominion. Then you also have Coastal Carolina, Georgia Southern, Georgia State. Those are great programs, and they're really good football coaches. But if you watch on any given Saturday, there's a Sun Belt team that can beat a Power 5 team. I go back to 2019, and we beat North Carolina at North Carolina. We beat South Carolina at South Carolina. The year previous to that, we took Penn State to double overtime, took Tennessee to overtime, and we have great players. And they play with a chip on their shoulder, which they should, because they were overlooked in some ways. But again, it's going to be the premier Group of 5 conference in the country.
Do you use that as a selling point or as a selling piece, I should say, when you go out recruiting? Because a lot of these kids may think it's just, P5 or nothing for that matter. But then whenever you guys come in with the Sun Belt Conference of what you guys have been able to do resume wise since you become the head coach and since you became a coach at Appalachian State, do you tie in the Sun Belt power into what you're trying to pitch to a student athlete?
Without question. And when you come to Apple, we played 8 games on ESPN or ESPN2 or ESPNU last year, and every game's also live stream on ESPN3. So we played on a national stage. With the new conference coming in, parents can be able to drive to. They can drive to Huntington, West Virginia. They can drive to Old Dominion, and App State's really in the center of it all. And so I saw it in the parents. It's a great conference. You can also drive to watch your kids play. And it's expensive now, hotel rooms, drive-in, food. So it's a little cheaper if you in the Sunbelt East right now.
Talk about this. How have you seen Appalachian State grow as a campus and as a university since you played until today?
Well, it's the academic profiles weren't a lot. I couldn't probably get into school there right now from my high school transcript. But everything changed when they beat Michigan. And I believe it was 2007, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. That changed our whole university. It changed the profile. And, for our football program, the average GPA on our football team as an incoming freshman is over 3.3 the 24 ACT. The average GPA of a incoming student is over a 4.0 and a 28 on the ACT. So it's changed everything. Then you may go on a roll, you win 3 national championships. That helps out as well. But it's changed a lot. It's changed for the better. I know our Chancellor Sherry Everts, our athletic director, Doug Gillen, and they have a vision. And my vision for our program, their vision for the university, our athletic department, it's all going the right direction. They want to win and do it the right way. And so far, knock on wood, we've been able to cash in on the opportunities we've had.
Talk about how the administration and your coaching staff as well have been helpful since you became the head coach back in 2019. You just mentioned how helpful they've been lately, but during your tenure as the head coach, how helpful have they been?
They've been great. Our Chancellor Everts, came from Nebraska when they were back in the heyday when they were winning national championships. She knows enough about football. And then our Doug Gill's been fantastic. I mean, we just put in a $70 million north end zone facility right there, and we've done a lot of upgrades. We're building a brand new indoor facility. We'll have a 120-yard new indoor facility by next spring. I mean, we're adding on to the suites on the east side of our stadium, and they've never said no. They've always said, "How can we help you?" And I do believe if you have that kind of backing from your administration, you have a chance to be successful.
Looking at the future for you all, you got your contract extended into 2026, but aside from that, to continue Appalachian State in this upward trajectory that you guys are on right now, continuing to be a part of a top 6 or 7 conference, along with being the top team in that conference, what needs to happen for this continuous trend of you all being successful?
Well, I guess we have a very tough fan base. We were 10-2 going to the championship game and lost our championship game by 6 points and lost our bowl game. And our fan base's eyes, that wasn't a great year, which anywhere else in the country, that would be fantastic. It didn't go the way we wanted to at the end, getting beat in the championship game, the bowl game, but we're finished 10-2. We have a defensive conference player of the year. We've had Chase Bryce set a single season record and throwing the football. We had 20 some guys on the all conference postseason selection committee there. And we have a really good football program. That sustainability, that's going to be the hardest part. And if you're not growing, you're getting left behind. And that's what we meet about on a monthly basis, myself and Doug, is how can we grow? How can we improve? Because if we're not trying to grow our university, grow our athletic department, then when this change happens with college football, we're going to get left behind. So we're doing all the right things to be successful, get ourselves lined up to be with the big dogs when this thing all breaks loose one day.
Looking at the players that you've been able to produce lately, you guys have had an NFL player the last 3 seasons for you all. What does that mean for you all to just continue to build an identity amongst Power Five programs and either group of five and other group of five programs as well? What does that mean for you all?
I think it speaks volumes. Again, we're a developmental program, and it means our coaches can coach and our players are good players. But in the recruiting process, I always ask me, what are your dreams? What are your goals? What are your aspirations? So, are your dreams and goals to go to the National Football League? Then, if that's true, you can come here, be successful, get a world class degree, and play the National Football League. And we have the proof is in the pudding here at our place. You look at the Marco Jackson was a 5th round draft pick this past year, and Darrington Evans was drafted by the Titans. You have trying to think who else we have in there. Akeem Gaither's playing for the Bengals. We have a couple of linemen are still playing. We have the punter for the Denver Broncos. He's the highest paid punter in the National Football League. So I think we have 8 or 9 players in the NFL right now that's on an active roster, and you can get that chance to play at the next level here in Boone, North Carolina.
When you look at the relationship side of things, we mentioned the relationship side with recruiting, but also at the same time, the relationship side of things during an off season or during a season as well is always beneficial. How much do you guys hone in on that?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
The relationship side, outside of recruiting, now that you guys have guys within your program, how much do you guys hone in and put time and attention into that?
Well, you have to recruit your own players. So we've added a whole new dimension to recruiting. Not only recruiting high school players, recruiting the transfer portal, you have to recruit your own players so you don't lose them. I think that's one thing we've done a really good job of here over the last 30 years is when I was the offensive line coach, our offensive line would come to my house every Thursday and eat dinner. And I wanted those guys to see what kind of dad I was, what kind of husband I was. Because it is, when you're at football, it's all about work. And when you're away from football, it's about your family. And so every Thursday I have about 15 to 18 guys in my house eating dinner. And they got really expensive really quick. So it's been great. You're saying my son Braxton was in my starting center's wedding. He was a ring bearer in his wedding. And those are things that are special. My kids think those players are heroes. And those are special days for the head football coach.
I have a question I asked Coach Dave Walker from Concord in the last episode because he's had multiple years of experience as a head coach. Now he's a head coach at the collegiate level. But for somebody who's been a head coach and even a coach at the collegiate level since he pretty much stepped out of college, what makes a successful coach or head coach?
I think being able to delegate. And when you're a position coach, you have 15 players to worry about. When you're the head coach, you have you have coordinators, position coaches, players, support staff, et cetera. And everybody's got a problem. And more people, more problems sometimes. But I think be able to delegate, trust your coaches. I tell our coaches, hey, I hired you to do a job, and I'm going to stay out of your way until you show me you can't do it. So if you can delegate responsibility and hire good people that want to be successful and be at App State, then you have a chance to have a great career there.
A couple more, and you actually have a West Virginia native on your team in Michael Hughes, a kicker. When you look at what he's been able to do in such a short amount of time for you all, how far has he come since he first stepped down in Boone?
Well, Michael's not your normal specialist. He's not flaky, and the wind has to be just right for him to kick the ball, or his toe hurts. He's like a Mike Ditka. He's like a linebacker who kicks the football, a tough kid. And we knew he was going to step in early and have a major impact on our program. And he only kicked one ball out of bounds all year long, and that was it should have been reviewed at Miami. Went over the pylon, and he's had, I think he's 80% touchbacks. And then he had a major play, and when we beat the 14th ranked team in the country, we surprised onside him and got it. It was a great kick, great recovery by one of our players. And but he's added a lot of value to our program. And again, it goes back to he was raised the right way by his mom and dad in the recruiting process. That was during COVID. So those guys were coming to Boone and looking at Boone themselves, paying their own way. But we got to steal Michael Hughes. That's for sure. We're glad we have him.
And then lastly, expectations for next year. When you look at what needs to happen for you all to continue this, again, I'm going to use this phrase, upward trajectory that you guys are on, what needs to happen for you all to continue this success?
Well, we'll have some young guys this year. We're fortunate enough to return our quarterback Chase Price, and all four of our receivers signed free agent deals this last week to the NFL. And one went to the Vikings, the Broncos, Buffalo, and Detroit. So we have to replace some receivers, but we have a lot of good young receivers that really didn't get a chance to play much last year, and they had a great spring. So that was always being the who's going to catch the ball next year. Well, we got some really good players no one's heard about. And we're turning 4 or 5 offensive linemen. All of our tight ends are back, or all of our running backs are coming back. But I try to put any kind of number on wins. We try to go out and do our very best and let the cards fall where they fall. But I know our guys are eager to get started here in August, and I am too. We need a little break here for a while, and then we'll get back and get in the swing of things. But I'm not going to put a number on it, but I do think we'll be making a run for this championship in early December.
Well, Coach, thank you for your time. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Good to pick your brain a little bit about the ins and outs of what goes on as the daily life of a Division I head coach. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Taylor, I appreciate any time, but let me know, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy.
Yep. That'll conclude episode 5 of West Virginia Sideline Talk with our terrific guest, Coach Shawn Clark from Appalachian State as well. You can follow me on Twitter at Taylor_Kennedy7 for all the latest about this podcast. And as always, subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube as well. Well, again, thank you all for listening, and I'll catch you all next week on episode 6 of West Virginia Sideline Talk. Thank you all for listening, and stay safe.